Hi again. In 30 Years of Watchtower Slave, William Schnell is finishing his chapter Entering Watchtower Slavery. At this point, he's only 20 years old. It's 1925. The Great Disappointment has happened, but Rutherford has pulled the wool over everybody's eyes, as Schnell points out last time. And there's a new idea, new light in the article Birth of a Nation in the Watchtower of 1925, about which they're still bragging, as if that was the most significant thing about the year 1925 in Watchtower history. He goes on, covenant or sacrifice, which? In 1925 appeared another Watchtower article, which was revolutionary. It was titled Covenant or Sacrifice, which? Graphically, it put the place of a character or an individuality into juxtaposition to a new concept, namely that of a kingdom publisher. Individuality had hitherto characterized all Bible students, typifies all bona fide Christians today, has marked all who ever were truly Spirit begotten. The child of God has, through Jesus Christ, entered into a highly personal relationship with God the Father. So highly personal is this relationship, and so important its aspect, that such a new creation can only grow and mature as it receives the Holy Spirit sent from the Father. In this walk of the Spirit, the individual Christian progresses in the light of the gospel towards that day when in glory he will be one of the priests of that nation of kings and priests. Naturally, under such activation, the watching of one's personal conduct and the improvement of one's life by synchronizing it with the concepts of Christianity are of paramount importance. In Bible student circles, that was called character development. The Watchtower Society, bent upon utilizing all the time of its prospective slaves to advance its advertising campaign, now came out with the premise that this character development was a sacrifice of individuality, and that it kept such Christians from fulfilling their part in the covenant. Claiming to be the mouthpiece of this covenant, the Society pointed out that in thus catering to himself and his individual standing with the Lord, a person was foolishly squandering his time and not redeeming it. Furthermore, so argued the Watchtower, a person was like a die or a character. No amount of development or cultivation could change him who had been so molded or cast. It would therefore be wiser for a Bible student to leave individual application of Christianity behind and to strike out to operate on a wider plane. Since character had already been settled and did not lend itself to improvement, it would be better to work in conjunction with a covenant as a mass, capital M, mass. In short, he should become a part of the new nation, N and N, capitalized again. There would be established in this broader framework a new pattern for individuals with like characteristics, superimposed alike on all individuals. From this argumentation, it followed that such persons would do better if they became kingdom publishers, K and P, capitalized this time. The time they now foolishly and uselessly use for edification and character development, they might better devote to preaching and selling books, booklets, and magazines, attending special meetings for further training as a publisher, and by counting and reporting all time spent in this work on report slips to the Watchtower Society. What was here proposed then was to supplant living in unto the Lord with living for the Society. It was proposed that instead of bringing forth to God one's own Christian fruits of the Spirit, one would do better by bearing kingdom fruits. Instead of bringing praise to God in the form of works of gratitude, report slips should be forwarded to the Watchtower Society reporting all time spent in this work and carefully indicating the number of books, booklets, and magazines sold. Thus, the Watchtower Society actually took God's place in relationship to the publisher. In this later innovation, did the Watchtower Society tip its hand. Interested in the making of a huge sales campaign of 1922, they wanted to have a semblance of scriptural backing for organizational gimmicks and records on hand. And eventually, they wanted to focus the thinking of every kingdom publisher hypnotically upon an organization line. This was to constitute the second phase of brainwashing, namely the annihilation of the individuality into robot-like mass action, or as it is now called, theocratic action. These were the doctrinal and organizational switches which were evident in the early part of 1925, and which were to set the trend for the emergence of the Watchtower theocracy of 1938. Thus was laid the foundation for the enslavement of all who would come under duress of the theocracy. And I was one of them. End of chapter 3. Next chapter is a look at the organization in America. I'll put in a link to a video we did some years back based on the Matthew 28 baptism passage, baptizing in the name of the Father, the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. The Watchtower, in replacing that Trinitarian formula, if you want to think of it as a formula, with their own, which of course has undergone a couple of verbal changes in the last 40 or so years. So we'll put in a link to that video, the Watchtower Trinity. See you next time.